Greetings, wonderful people. I'm Cindy, the self-titled Empress of Infinite Supply and Radiant Love of the Galactic Council of Women, All Genders Welcome.
And I'm Michael, Cindy's sidekick, aka her Irish 11-month younger brother. And I'm self-titled Miguel Angel, the Lightbringer.
And together we are the Wonder Irish Twins.
All right, that was not our best work, but that's okay.
It's just going to keep getting better and better. We're willing to play. We're playing these roles, and we're playing these roles with each other, like brother and sister, and also Lightbringer and lover and bringer of infinite supply, or radiator of that truth. And together we have a mission here on the Wonder Irish Twins, and that is to yield to something greater within us and around us, to bask in the relief and joy of surrendering to something greater, and then to radiate that power that we have between us, that ability as lifelong friends, siblings, and servers of the highest light.
And we do that to help others tune out the growing noise of opposition, doubt, and shame, to help us truly see, hear, and live what is really important, what really gets you up in the morning and jump out of bed for.
And that being crazy fun, something that kids would want to do or want to emulate. So the title of this episode is, But Don't Worry, There's an Amy. And this comes from a story that was told to us by a friend of ours that we went to college with, because Michael and I and our younger brother, Stephen, all went to the same college, James Madison University. And Stephen, as many of you know, skedaddled to the other side, exit stage left. And so Mike, what you don't know is I called Darren, this is our friend, on Friday, a few days ago, to really get the whole story and to talk about the background. And we had an hour conversation that was so joyful, so funny, so meaningful, so touching. And I learned some things. And so, but obviously I'm not going to tell that whole story, but this is the story of how we get, but don't worry, there's an Amy. And this story was originally told to us by, or at least me for the first time, by Darren, when Mike and I had gone back to JMU because one of our good friends was being inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame. So a lot of the crew came, and I was so blessed to be invited to that and to experience that. And when we were at the Airbnb that you rented, Darren told this story. And now I get the full backstory. So this is the story. So Darren said that he was a freshman at JMU and you were a junior. And he first met you. The first sighting that he had of Mike was in the pool at JMU. Do you know this story? You don't know the story. Mike and I haven't talked for a few weeks, so this is like fresh. And you were going berserk in the water and saying, I wrote it down so I wouldn't remember. Well, we can edit this part out too, so I'll give some space with that. You were going berserk in the water, like, you know, a crazy man, enthusiastic and all that, and screaming, violence is golden.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Violence is golden.
Do you remember violence is golden?
Yeah.
Well, so that was his first view of Mike. And he was like, oh my God, this guy's intense. And as he got to know you, you were intense. You were a great swimmer. You were a great athlete. You're gorgeous women, all that kind of stuff. And he's like a freshman, like looking up to you. And he didn't get to know Steve, who was a year younger than you, until the following year really well, because they shared a bathroom in the hall, the Ashby Hall that they were sharing. And they were both poli-sci majors. So Darren says he would get up to go to class and Stephen wouldn't. And Stephen would make fun of him. And if Stephen did go to class, he'd sit there with his arms folded while Darren was just taking notes. And he would say, take notes, scribe, you know, with his hoodie up and just sitting there. Because like Steve didn't like to be bothered by things, you know, he was a very happy guy. So when we were in college, my dad gave each of us an American Express card for emergencies. And so my friends and I, which also then came, I believe you can share what you did with this, but every month or 6 weeks, we declare an emergency and have to go to Howard Johnson's or the China Inn or some sort of restaurant. There was an emergency that Walt would pay for. And Dad was so great. Like he wouldn't question that if we didn't abuse it. So you guys, Dad came into town for maybe something. I was already in law school at the time. And because Darren and I were never at JMU together, which I didn't really realize, I would only come back and see him. and you went out to Pargo's restaurant. Do you remember Pargo's?
Yeah, for sure. That's where we
I
used to
don't
go.
remember Pargo's, but so Dad, you guys would use the Emergency American Express dinner to take the guys out to Pargo, and Dad was taking out to Pargo. And before Dad put his credit card to pay for you and the guys, one of the guys said, well, thanks, for paying for this. And Dad was apparently, in their estimation, very intense and like, oh, you're assuming that I'm paying for this? Like, are you one of these guys that I'm regularly taking out to dinner and you're just assuming I'm going to do it again? And Darren said he was like, oh, wow. Like, he was like, he knew you as like this intimidating guy. And then, Walt comes on the scene. So that night or the next day or whenever, he was talking to Steve and he goes, how do you do it? How do you be like the younger brother to Mike? Like the God of all things. And then Walt is your dad. And he said, well, you think that they're bad. There's a Cindy. He goes, what? He goes, yeah, there's an older sister. He goes, there's an older sister. He goes, yeah, she's in law school. You think that they're tightly wound? Woo, you should meet Cindy. And he said, but don't worry, there's an Amy. And that's our younger sister, who must have been at the time like 10 or 11, or because she's 9 years younger than me.
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that story just like struck me with the tenderness of it for Amy, Steve's love for Amy. And Amy, I heard her the other day, she was staying with me and she was talking to Dad and Becky, so my dad and our stepmom. And she was, I think it was her that coined all the ers and es. Like, you're Mikey, I'm Linders.
Definitely Amy, yeah.
Definitely Amy. Stephen was Stevers, and, she calls Dad there. Bombers. She just these terms of affection. And she's so loyal and so tender, and also don't mess with her. Like, Amy is like, I could just feel Steve's love for her. And they also traveled the world together. And it's just sweet that their relationship would be so different than ours with her, because it's Cindy, Michael, Stephen, Amy, and Stephen and Amy being closest together. And I guess following a little bit of different paths in their life journey, equally as spectacular. But so that's the story. And what I wanted to talk about today with is this sense of, when Darren told that story, I felt such sweetness for Amy, and I felt such tender compassion and sadness for myself. Like, what tightly wound and intense, where I came from for a lot of my life from that place. I also have a pure place of liking to experience life, but I thought about like what period in my life did I then become that overachiever, tightly wound, like having to perform. And do you remember, like, were you always like top guy, top gun, top guy?
I was, I say this to a lot of people, I'm an introvert. I call it a closet introvert, right? I was shy. I was not, all through grade school, middle school, high school, I could go either side, right? I could go with the jock. I could maybe hang out and meet some of the jocks, but I wasn't in their crowd, and I'd hang out with the people who were brains, and study a lot, but I wasn't very confident. I was, I was, like we said, achiever. I really worked hard to get results, and that came as a young age. It was, we were using our brother Stephen, there's the difference in personalities. Stephen would be told to go vacuum the carpet, and he would vacuum the carpet, and then it would maybe not be up to quality. And then I'll do it, I'll fix it, and I would make it rose and perfect, and oh, Michael, you're the best at it. So I was very motivated by being the best at it, and we may, I'll contrast some, results are good, right? Getting results and achieving, it's just how healthy is that? But yeah, I was always driven to be the best, to get the best grades. That never put me in the best crowd, wasn't in like traditionally, just like the movies about high school. I was never in the in crowd. But I was always trying to get the best grades, the best times, best results in vacuuming a living room, right? So that was me. So yeah, I'm very tightly wound like that. Matter of fact, when I was I had a big transition in my life and careers 2 years ago, and I before I did that, I went through a program, a transition course. And so I did a transition course, and I got a life coach, and she was a wonderful lady who's probably about 20 years my senior, and she's been through all kinds of businesses, and she was doing this as retirement. She's in her home in Virginia Beach on her deck, and she and I are talking once a week for about 5 weeks, and she gave me assignments. And one of the things you do is you got to understand who you are to know what you want to do. So you want to do it. And I find myself on these different surveys in different ways. There's mind mapping, there's Odyssey, there's all kinds of ways you can figure things out. And I was trying to map my strengths, and find myself lying to myself, right? Lying. You're sitting there lying because you want to have the best answer. I want to have the best transition. I want to be not vulnerable. We talk about vulnerability in our podcast. I want to look like I'm the best. So yeah, it didn't just start back in the day, and I always wanted to be the best. And I found through the surveys that results in achieving is one of the things that is my strength, but it's not always the top thing I value. I value fulfillment over achievement. And that's hard. So anyway, yes.
Yeah, like in spiritual circles, it could be called like a disharmonious split within us. Like I know that I had that. Like what I long for is to experience love and relationship, and to make things perfect or to be the best doesn't necessarily cultivate the free flow of love and relationship. And in whatever relationship, from a job to, an experience, or to family or friends. And, it's interesting. Like I did forget that about you, Mike. Like when I was reflecting on that, I was painfully shy as a child, like crippling shy. And we would move every 3 or 4 years because my dad worked for a pharmaceutical company, not the military as everyone assumed. And it would take me 2 or 3 years to feel comfortable, and then we would move again.
Right.
And as I got older, the people became more like, they had their group of friends, and the parents knew the people, and mom and dad were busy working. And, that was a stressful situation. And up until 7th grade, I just didn't really talk to people. And I would procrastinate. I would get bad grades. Mom and dad would have to talk to the teachers. We went to a Catholic school in New Jersey, and I started becoming interested in the books mom was reading, and she read all sorts of things, but there were some books that were a little bit risque or very risque. So I started taking notes in a little notepad of these words and scenes that came out of these books. Like I specifically remember this book, Looking for Mr. Goodbar, which was, I think on page 164, there's a sex scene that, as whatever I was in 6th grade, just blew my mind. So I would do those kind of things. And I had a little notebook, and I lost it in the gym of that Catholic school. And someone found it and turned it into the principal, a nun. We didn't have a very nice name for her, so I apologize to her for that, although I don't remember her being warm or fuzzy at all. And she called mom and dad, and I was called out of class for a meeting with mom and dad and the principal of that. And I think that was a catalytic moment. I was like grounded for the rest of my life. I was, couldn't go out for recess. I mean, all sorts of things were happening. And I would act up more in school, and I was getting lots of trouble. And that moment, I still feel like a horror movie. Like dad, mom, nun, notebook of these words and these things. And which also puts all sorts of shame around sexuality. It's not like I don't remember them. Maybe that's what precipitated dad's yellow legal pad explaining stuff to us later on about how things worked. But I just thought, I'm never going to put myself in that situation again. And that's when I started hurling myself into academics. And by 7th, 8th grade and high school, I was going to do well. And I was never, I could mingle with every group, but I wasn't ever part of them in high school. I would have like a best friend. I mean, wonderful best friends. But I could be, they in high school for us, well, my high school, which I think you went to junior high there were, it was like something out of Greece. There were the jocks, the freaks, and the brains. And the jocks were the athletes. I was certainly friends with them. The brains were the smart people. I was in all those honors classes. And the freaks were the people that did a lot more drugs and drank and that kind of stuff. And the street that we lived on just happened to be populated by a lot of those people. So they were my friends on the bus. But I don't think that I'm shy or an introvert right now, but I think I long for the intimacy of one, like close, very close relationships, not huge amounts of people. Like I long for that. And so I think that's where that came from. Like I didn't want to be humiliated again. And I was going to play the game. And I remember saying, I'm not going to be financially dependent on anyone when I grow up. Like I'm going to be my own self. And I mean, remember that mantra in myself even through law school. And so I have some compassion for what happens to a human being and why we decide to like hurl ourselves into being the best or whatever it was. I mean, even between you and I, like when we would have our birthdays, we probably said this already, but until like maybe 8 years ago, when we're the same age for 16 days, I think I would initiate, well, Mike, I'm 47 and I have X, Y, and Z and PDQ. And you'd say, well, Cindy, I'm 47 and I have X, Y, and Z. Like we would kind of compare and contrast, like who
No,
was.
it started actually with, we're both 17. What grade are you in?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was two grades behind because I was a little held back as before kindergarten. So no, yeah, and that's pretty much. And then eventually now it becomes that now it's just we're the same age and we glorify it. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun to be the same age at the same time, and I mean, I think it's really sweet now. I love my birthday, but I'm a little sad that I changed numbers. I felt that this year, being a little sad that we weren't going to be 56 together again until we're 57 together next year. So I wanted to talk about like with this, like in our mission to surrender to something greater, how it is that I've been learning to quell that voice within me that you're not enough. And in order to be safe, you have to be liked. You have to be praised. You have to do everything perfectly. And in the last few years, as my personal life has changed so much through divorce and moving and changed relationships within family dynamics, I have had to come face to face with that. And it hasn't been pleasant. It has been like the ego, the affirmation of my separateness, meeting the pain of dissolving into a new way of being. And even though I call myself the Empress of Infinite Supply and Radiant Love, it's true, but it's tongue in cheek. It's like, look what the greater made. But yes, we can play anything we want to play. And now when I'm doing my job in the world, I just think with like such humility, like I'm saying like a lot again, I'm noticing that. So I'm feeling very young, maybe in college. What I long for deep within me, what motivates me to act and move is to dissolve the suffering that I see in the world, in the people that I care about, in myself, and to transform that energy, because it's energy, it's sensation, it's movement, it's vibration, into something that can build what real world harmony is, which isn't all Shangri-La, but it's something that's workable and it's not continually being distracted with the differences and the life and death fighting. And there's a new measure of success that I'm using. Success used to be, what's the goal? What's the grade? Did I win the case? Did I get that thing? Did that relationship succeed the way I thought it should succeed? And now I'm learning that the definition of success that I want to live by is a question, really. Am I enjoying the process of being me? And if I am enjoying the process of being me, then I am successful. Whatever happens as a result will be successful because I enjoy the way. Whether it classically succeeds or fails was a dynamic I got stuck in that I don't want to be on that hamster wheel anymore. Like that is so depleting to my immune system, to my sense of self-confidence, to my well-being, to the caliber of relationships that I can cultivate. So now that measure of success, and even before this session today, I was running a little late and I started to get stressed and I stopped myself. And I said, this is antithetical to the purpose of why you're doing anything anymore. And I let that time pressure dissolve away, knowing that well, we would just be a few minutes late if we needed to be a few minutes late. Like that being perfectly on time didn't mean that I'm great or sucky. It just means that I'm a human.
Right. I usually go, who gets to choose how I feel right now? Who gets to choose? I sometimes think, who's in control of this? Not control's a thing, but who's in control? Or why am I attached to that? Can I control that attachment by cutting that attachment that that is causing me those negative feelings, whatever, to not be in the moment present. And I fail all the time. So I fail all the time. But you talked about achieving, and like I said, achieving versus fulfilling, and then you want to enjoy or have joy, in your life when you go. And I used to say this to people in my military time, where I would say to people that work with me or that I was responsible for, I said, I hope that you're enjoying our experience, but I always want you. But I know you're not going to. There's things we have to do that you can't look at and say this is enjoyable. Whether you're in combat or you have to do some sad things or whatever, or just very hard things. But I hope at the end of the day you're proud of it, right? That you're proud. And I think it was Mother Teresa used to say that at the end of the day you should fall back into your chair, something like that, exhausted in the service of God and others. So I mean, that to me, that's so maybe. I wasn't doing that in the military, but you should feel exhausted serving your mission. Which at that time was the military, and now I've got a different mission. And you certainly have a mission. I applaud you, because you could certainly have done many different things, and not I'm gush on you just that you could have done lots of different things with your life, but that now you're dedicating it to help people enjoy, help them to see the greater, to yield, to bask, and radiate, which I just love being your sidekick for. That there was, I told you on that transition course I did, where I had a life coach. One of the things that she had me do was envision 3 possible futures, right? The future is the practical thing. What's the practical thing to do as you transition? And I had a practical course that I could have taken. And then then says number 2 is, what do you do if that was taken away? Okay, well, that's all right. And then the third one is, what do you do if money and image is no object? And that's the one, that's the one that a lot of people say, well, that's the one you should follow. And you might be able to follow it, but you may not be possible. But what you're doing is you're following that number 3. You're following one where money and image is no object, and you're creating something that certainly I'm sure you enjoy and you're fulfilling. So anyway.
Well, thank you, Mike. That's really sweet. I've had a difficult week emotionally, and my sense of, I'm going to be a little, because I'm such a feeler, my sense of self-confidence, like with faith in myself, was eroded. And I was tracing it back. It's where, that who gets to choose how you're feeling. Like right now, you say, I would give the imagery is the baton, like you're holding the baton on your well-being or your sense of yourself. And instead of deciding that between yourself and the greater, you give that to someone else. Here, you decide if I'm valuable, if I'm worthy. And I'm thinking like that old track that I can unconsciously or semi-consciously or even consciously pass the baton to someone else and to choose that. And so I was amending that. I was turning that ache and anguish into that raw fuel. And it is like, I thank you for that way, that image and money. It's like, I will go the rest of my life using every gift that I've had, whether it happens in something I can discernibly see or not, although I certainly do see it with the Galactic Council members and the network that we're building. I mean, a high amplification of the energy that they have to live their lives and what's opening up for them, and now how they radiate it out in the world, which was the vision that was mine or given to me or both. And that sense of that pain then being even more of a motivator, like whatever would cause me to feel that way whatever construct that I would get stuck in that would make me feel lesser, or would make other people feel lesser, or would have people tearing each other apart. I got really deep in myself about what was happening. And at the core of it, which I think is at the core of a lot of humanity, is this fear of death. Like, what happens if it's like shame, like what you were describing about pride? I call that healthy pride or dignity that also has humility, to pass out at the end of the night with the dignity of a man or a woman who has given his, her, or their best in service to what matters to them. And that feeling of rest rather than depletion. Um, and this week, what I was very much grappling with, I actually had the voice this week. I'm like, I could just live a very small, abundant, happy-ish life. Like when I'm telling myself that story, the Galactic Council is spectacular. It's not about that. I mean, it's growing and growing. I think my ego self was a little like, oh, this is too big. This is too big, because it's really big right now. And in the sense of growing, and the people that are supporting it that are coming and growing. But I thought I would be not happy, not fulfilled. I would be so dissatisfied if I didn't let go of what anyone else might think of me, let go of a construct that caused me to suffer, although I'm very grateful for my whole entire life, and then be able to move through, especially what's coming up in the next few months for humanity and for me personally, are some really big energies. And the possibility is it for to be, in my opinion, to be really, really painful and then end up with more pain, or to be somewhat painful and to end up with what we truly long for, is to know that we matter, that we're infinite beings, that the only real death is that sense of separateness that you have to fight to maintain your own separate space in a harsh way, and that we can do something that our children can be healthily proudful. That's not a word, it's prideful a word, and have dignity and have some peace and momentum to grow up into. So it's been a really cooked up week for me in so many ways. How was your week, sweetheart?
Yeah, I could feel it. I was in a conference in Las Vegas and never saw the sun. So
oh, that means you were in Las Vegas this week? We haven't talked in a while, you and I. So
I could feel it too. I could feel it. So, the funny thing, I could feel it. I know you left me a message, just call and talk. I should have said, hey, that's a sign, right? Where there's that my sister needs help, and the universe, the Holy Spirit, whatever you believe in, will say, my sister, I should call my sister. I was programmed from the morning all the way through evening every day at a conference, and never saw sun. But it's funny because you talk about the conversation between siblings. That's what this is. This is a conversation between siblings, and the topic is that and there's an Amy, right? You tell me if there's an Amy. You two have been on a journey together too, and it's interesting because Steve, who passed away, he introduced a lot of Eastern philosophy, a lot of reading. We read, from Joseph Campbell was not Eastern, but it was a lot of the philosophy of the hero and the warrior and that path. And then we got into Eknath's form, got into the Zen of life and different things. Then he went and lived it. He went out and lived it. But so we talked a lot about that growing up, and then now you and I talk quite a bit about spiritual things, and hopefully we're talking to people about it. And then we got Amy. So Amy is a joy, and she's, like you said, strong, and she doesn't suffer fools. It's good, right? But she's certainly a bright light. But I think the conversation should have called you back, or should have make sure we talk to each other. We could have just connected. That's the joy of having a relationship as adult children, siblings who are connected, and you can be in different states, different energy states, right? Whether your energy is waned a little bit, you should be still as bright, but we're not always where we connect, and that's what we like to show, is that you can, as siblings, be vulnerable, yield, and talk about things.
Yeah.
Your message was, oh, just catching up, whatever, just catch up. But there's a hint of there, which could have, would have, should have been, hey, can you call me back? I really need to talk to my brother.
Yeah, and that would be the bravado. It's going to sound funny, but what I love about myself is that I know that we're more, and I know that I'm one of the most powerful healing forces on the planet. It's just a fact. It's just like knowing that I have dark hair with starlight in it. It's like, I know that to be true. And it doesn't exempt me from my human journey. That would mean that the human journey is all like just a punishment, and you have to then jump from A to Z. There's a richness in it. And but I forgot, like, I think that in the whatever I was going through, to just ask, like, hey, Mike, if you have a minute.
Yeah.
Or if you have 10 minutes, it's a tough week.
Yeah. And I got busy and I forgot to call you. So I'm glad we had this.
And Amers was here. She's been with me. We've been calling each other. I'll get my tissue. I don't know where to put it. I'll use my scarf as I always do. We've been each other's service animals. And, we have a barometer for each other. And Amy is, oh my God, like, she still will have the voice that says that, like the rest of us, you're not enough. But Amy, I'm watching her blossom. Like, hydrangeas are my favorite bush. Like a hydrangea, that every blossom is start blossoming on the same time. So her loyalty to love, to herself, to her path of wholeness and health, and to, like, don't mess with me kind of energy. Like, I'm watching her receive teachings, find a way to, like, share her light in the world and the service that she is for me and for others. I'm blown away. I'm blown away by her. I learned so much from her. I'm so grateful for her. And wherever you are, if Amy ever listens to these, I bow in your general direction, Amers. Like, she's amazing. Amers. Cinders. Dad used to call her Tigger when she was little. I think he still calls her Tigger sometimes. On Winnie the Pooh, because she was just like,
about bouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun. Yeah.
The wonderful thing about Tiggers is she
for sure.
She would flip between each of us. And, one of my, like, childhood memory wounds from the perspective that I saw it, and I can shine a bigger flashlight on it, is that we were all in our separate rooms. Like, you and Stephen were in a room watching TV. Mom and Amy were in a room watching TV. Dad was in the family room watching TV, usually golf with the TV tuner. And I was in my room, and I wanted us to be together. Maybe I didn't say it enough, but Amy would flip like Tigger between all of us,
right,
like, come and visit us. That's really sweet. Well, I will say that I think it's probably, what time is it, Mike? How are we?
32 minutes, 33 now.
Okay, so this is the time that we're going to bring this to conclusion. And first, I want to say thank you, Mike. First of all, I was very much looking forward to seeing you. And after spending that immersive time in Puerto Rico together, and then going like cold turkey. But what did you say? Do you remember what you said, what you were coined as you? Because I was missing you, about loneliness and aloneness. Do you remember? You were like, trademark Mike.
I say things I wish I could trademark them all. The difference between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is a pain and a feeling that is where you're feeling weak and that you're not. You feel cut off from the source, cut off but alone is you can be by yourself and be basking in the joy of the light, right? So loneliness is by yourself. But I don't remember exactly what I said. You probably do better. So
it's on the text strip, but I forgot to call it up. But I remember the feeling. I've interfaced with it, like, solitude is oneness, and then loneliness is maybe the same physical situation, but it's so separate from that connection to everyone and everything. And I think in these times right now, to be able to have honest conversations, that the subject of them, for me at least, and this is my opinion, is that not to hyper focus on what's wrong and just destroy what's wrong. I mean, I get, yes, that's truth. There's Shiva the Destroyer and all that. But for my purposes, like, what I think will be supportive to myself and humanity is to heal the underlying cause of all of that strife. Like we can keep healing symptoms of it, or we can go to the originating cause. And the originating cause is within each of us, forgetting that we have within us the same exact power that made the heavens and the earth, that we can play here in these bodies and minds, and we can learn to stop competing and elevate ourselves from even cooperating into collaborating on every level of existence for ourselves and for everyone else. And the people around the world that are doing it, there are so many people, first in the Galactic Council and in many other groups, that are poised and are pouring forth that support right now. And so I'm very grateful to you, Mike, and to anyone else that is listening. So we're going to do our 2 signature closings. The first is Superpower Kryptonite. What superpower are you feeling that you're developing strongly, and what is the kryptonite? And I'll go first this time, because I think I had you go first last time, although I don't really remember, but I'll go first. The superpower is that the Galactic Council of Women needs some global up-leveling of its support system, and I feel that we are magnetizing, like we've been interviewing people from all over the country for new posts as the organization grows. Even this week, Greece, California, like literally having interviews with people. And my superpower that I feel right now is that natural, full, powerful magnetizing of who my colleagues are to help serve this mission for humanity and for Earth and for the water, for the animals, for everything. And my kryptonite is still letting go of the roles that I have inhabited and the way I think they should be, that causes me pain and limits me and limits others. Like the roles that's what I love about the Galactic Council. Calling myself the Empress of Infinite Supply and Radiant Love, like I don't think she's ever been made before. She can be whatever she wants, but she basically lives by something greater. But there's roles that we have here in humanity, like even brother-sister roles, that can be a construct that isn't expansive. And that we're doing that. We're expanding the construct. So that's my kryptonite, is letting go of tight notions around roles.
Okay, and so for me, the superpower that I think I've cultivated over many years is I'm a great body surfer. And so when I go body surfing, I spent a lot of time in the ocean. I was an ocean rescue swimmer, lifeguard, Steve, brother, on the beach, and I can feel the waves. I can see, and I know where to be to catch a wave. And I've done that in all my life when it comes to career stuff too. I just know where to be to catch a wave, or to see a wave coming, and I look at it and I can catch that wave and I'll get in the right position. So when it comes to opportunities coming, changes, I had a lot of different, done a lot of weird, wacky things in my life, and I just saw a wave just came my way this past week, right? And I said, okay, comes a wave. Let me see if I can jump on it, right? And so I can jump on it, and I caught it, and I caught the wave. So maybe there's a change coming. We'll see. But I can catch, so I'm good. But the kryptonite still is money and image, right? Where so it's just do I get compensated? And what does it look like? I still have attachment to image of what others think, even though it shouldn't matter. Other than I should have empathy and feel how they're feeling, but not what they're thinking about me. And who's in control of that should be me, right? What is this going to look like from an image perspective? Anyway, those are my 2.
I think that would, how about, because we didn't talk about this before, let that be the subject of our next Wonder Irish Twins, image and imagination. Image, imagine, imagination, and how they come to play. I think that's really rich, even like biblical false images and imagine and imagination. And I think that would be a great subject. So now we have our subject. Thank you, Mikey. And so since I was running late today, I don't know where all the pictures of you and I were. So I was frantically, before I took a deep breath, going through the mass of other pictures that generally don't have, because I already separated ours for like a video montage that is on the YouTube channel. But I found one, and I don't know what this has to do with anything. First of all, I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. With having to do with overachieving or underachieving, but of course, but don't worry, there's an Amy and Steve. Everything has to do with everything. Do you know? Okay, your impressions on this picture.
Let's see. I got a couple things. I guess that's us in the kitchen. Kitchen means family to me. And
do you know what this occasion is?
I can't quite tell. I know I was in Spain at that time, so
this was my house in Bryn Mawr before the additions for a certain occasion having to do with 60th birthday for our papa.
Oh yeah, so I just got back from Spain. Yeah, so it was his 60th birthday. Okay, yeah, that's right. 4 years away from me. Wow, that's I remember that event. We'd been living in Spain, and I ordered a bottle of port, a 1940 bottle of port, because that's when Dad was born. And we opened that up. We had a wonderful. I'll never forget that dinner. I may forget that kitchen scene, but I'll never forget that dinner where it was, food, communion. Communion in like Catholic churches, is bread. It's the bread of life. Where we commune together and grow. And I think that our family just grew that. It was such a magical dinner that you hosted for us. And whether it was the multiple course meals and the different types of things we paired with them, but mainly it was the getting euphoric with family, and which is great. And I don't remember there. Of course, I don't. It's a good thing we don't remember pain and have to. I don't remember that being, having your typical family stuff, which we do, which was we hold on to bad attachments. But I remember that being just idyllic, wonderful day. Yeah.
I think that was the shift point on us as a family dynamic. I mean, the divorce was well done by that point, and Becky was part of the family. Mom was part of the family. We had figured out how to interface with that, and that meal. So it was Michael, Stephen, Cindy, Amy, we were all there. It was rack of lamb, or lack of ram, as my dad likes to joke. And we did an Emerald Lagasse recipe with that was spectacular. It still is my favorite lamb rub recipe, with the Dijon mustard, the garlic, and the rosemary, and his sauce, or his Bam stuff, which I don't think they make anymore. And potatoes, and Matanzas Creek 1990 Merlot. It's the first time I had a red wine where I was like, oh, I get why people like wine. It was like drinking an orgasm. I mean, it was incredible. And we had the multiple course meal. And I think creating together as a family, honoring Dad, that port, which was nectar from the divine too, was really amazing. And then we did a dinner like that for Mom when she turned 60 at your house in San Diego, or wherever you were. Arizona.
Yuma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for me then represents the shift from overachieving to just creating with joy for the love of it, for the celebration of life, to celebrate each other as we are. I mean, that's really, Dad was my arch rival nemesis growing up, the intense wall. I mean, he is such a beautiful human being. I love him so much, and I benefit from every minute of my relationship with him now. And I did back then. I just didn't know it because we butt heads.
It's true.
All right, Mikey. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. And thank you for everyone that has listened. And we hope that this conversation, this sharing, will help you up the amperage of the conversations you're having with your friends, with your family, with your siblings, if you have them, and that you can also find the ability to yield to something greater, to bask in the joy and relief and more of that, and then to radiate for yourself, for those close to you, and for the world what really matters, and tune out that noise and opposition and shame and those voices, and direct our imaginations to something that matters. Because I just want to say, I just saw Steve so clearly during this last moment, and he gave me the book, and he gave Amy the book by Alan Watts. I think it's What Does It Matter?
Yep.
And so to ask the question, and this will be from Steve, we're getting ready very soon for his 3-year skedaddle to the other side date. What does it matter? and then allow yourself to go forward. Thank you, Michael. I love you so much.
Thanks so much, Lou, too.
Love you, everyone. Love and blessings.
When there is love, I can't wait to talk about it when things get rough. I like to walk with you. La 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 la.